There is something strange happening to humanity, and it is not visible to the naked eye. It is not just politics. It is not just technology. It is not merely a cultural phase. It is something quieter. Conversations are shorter. Opinions are more extreme. Spirituality has become performative. Relationships feel increasingly disposable. We have never had so much access to information, and yet there is a subtle, pervasive sense of emptiness running through millions of people, including those who consider themselves spiritually awakened. The uncomfortable question we must ask is this: are we evolving, or are we simply accumulating stimulation? Ancient texts attributed to Thoth, the Egyptian archetype of wisdom, writing, and the measurement of time, spoke of cycles of ascension and decline in human consciousness. It is important to clarify this with historical honesty. Thoth is a mythological deity from ancient Egypt. The so-called emerald tablets widely circulated today are modern texts from the 20th century, not archaeological documents from pharaonic Egypt. That is historically verifiable. However, symbolism does not lose power because it is symbolic. The central message of these teachings describes a period in which humanity would begin confusing appearance with essence, speed with progress, information with wisdom. If we observe our current world with psychological maturity, this description feels unsettlingly relevant. From a neuroscience perspective, our brains are being reshaped in real time. The reward system, especially dopamine pathways, responds strongly to rapid, unpredictable, fragmented stimuli. Notifications, short-form videos, infinite scrolling. Each micro-stimulus produces a small chemical reward. The problem is not technology. The problem is repetition. When the brain becomes conditioned to rapid rewards, it begins to resist longer processes. Deep reading becomes tiring. Meditation feels unbearable. Studying a single subject for hours feels unnatural. This does not mean you have lost your capacity. It means your attention has been trained toward fragmentation. And here lies the critical insight. Superficiality does not begin in culture. It begins in the structure of attention. A mind that cannot sustain focus cannot sustain transformation. Transformation requires remaining present through initial discomfort. It requires moving through inner layers. It requires silence, something we almost compulsively avoid. Later, we will explore the role of silence in rebuilding depth. But for now, ask yourself something simple. When was the last time you sat alone, without stimulation, for 20 minutes, and felt peaceful? If this reflection is already expanding your awareness, consider subscribing to this channel. Not as a formality, but because each conscious subscription strengthens a field where science and spirituality are integrated responsibly. When you choose intentional content, you subtly shift collective algorithms. It may seem small, but it is not. We are living in an age of information excess and integration scarcity, and that has consequences. Superficiality creates reactive individuals, not conscious creators. People who respond to external triggers, but do not shape their own internal reality. Quantum physics is often misused in spiritual discourse, so we must be precise. The double-slit experiment demonstrates that measurement affects the behavior of subatomic particles. This does not mean that human thought magically alters any aspect of macroscopic reality. However, symbolically and psychologically, the lesson is profound. The way you observe influences the way you experience. Attention is directed energy. Directed energy builds patterns. Repeated patterns build identity. Identity builds behavioral destiny. When Thoth, as an archetype, warned of eras of illusion, we can interpret that as a caution against excessive identification with the surface of existence. Today, that surface has a name: digital validation, spiritual performance, constant consumption. But we are not here to condemn modernity. We are here to understand the mechanism. Because what you understand, you can transform. If you sense that something feels artificial in the way the world is organizing itself, an acceleration that does not produce depth, a connection that does not create belonging, perhaps you are not out of alignment. Perhaps you are perceiving the silent collapse of collective attention. And when attention collapses, consciousness weakens. But there is good news. The same neuroplasticity that fragments can rebuild. The same technology that distracts can connect. The same mind that was conditioned can be reconditioned. In the minutes ahead, we will explore the invisible layers of this phenomenon. Information overload that produces sophisticated ignorance, the digital ego that fragments identity, spirituality reduced to aesthetics, the fear of silence, and the modern metaphor of timelines as cumulative patterns of repeated choice. Nothing here will be treated as empty mysticism. Everything will be anchored in science, psychology, and responsible symbolic interpretation. Because awakening is not escaping reality, it is seeing it with depth. Take a deep breath and prepare to look beyond the surface. If there is a sophisticated trap in the modern era, it is not crude ignorance, it is sophisticated ignorance. Never before have we had so much access to spiritual, scientific, and philosophical knowledge. Within minutes, anyone can watch lectures about quantum mechanics, neuroplasticity, transcendental meditation, Jungian archetypes, conscious manifestation, and the multiverse. Access is immediate. The language is simplified. The experience is stimulating. But there is a profound difference between exposure and integration. The human brain was designed to learn through applied repetition, not passive consumption. Neuroscience is clear on this point. New neural connections are strengthened when there is deliberate practice, emotional association, and consistent repetition. Without that, information remains in the superficial cortex as stored data, but it is not embodied in behavior. In other words, you can intellectually understand the law of attraction and still emotionally react from fear every single day. You can comprehend the principles of quantum physics and still live on autopilot. You can speak about expanding consciousness and continue maintaining unconscious self-sabotaging patterns. This is not hypocrisy. It is lack of integration. Modern superficiality does not appear only in digital distraction. It also appears in the illusion of spiritual progress. Consuming awakening content is not the same as awakening. And we must be honest here. The spirituality industry has also adapted to the fast stimulation model. Short phrases, accelerated promises, techniques that work in 24 hours. The brain loves this. Dopamine responds to the expectation of immediate reward. But real transformation does not operate under the logic of instant gratification. Thoth, as an archetype of deep knowledge, symbolizes something essential. Wisdom requires inner initiation. An initiation is not an external event. It is a psychological process. Historically speaking, in ancient mystery schools, both in Egypt and Greece, learning involved silence, discipline, and prolonged contemplation. There were no shortcuts. The idea of instant transmission of enlightenment is a modern phenomenon. Later we will speak about how to rebuild depth practices within contemporary reality. But for now, observe something subtle. How much content do you consume each week that you truly apply? If the answer is uncomfortable, that is not a personal failure. It is cultural conditioning. Information overload creates a false sensation of advancement. The brain registers novelty as progress. Each new concept activates areas associated with curiosity and motivation. But without application, that energy dissipates quickly. It is like going to the gym every day just to look at the machines without ever using them. You leave feeling as though you did something, but your body does not transform. The same happens with the mind. Another rarely discussed point is the psychological impact of multiple perspectives. When you consume dozens of different spiritual frameworks, manifestation, Stoicism, Buddhism, Hermeticism, applied neuroscience, a phenomenon called cognitive overload can occur. The mind begins switching between belief systems without consolidating any of them. This creates internal confusion. And confusion is fertile ground for superficiality, because when everything seems possible, nothing is deepened. This is why many people feel they know a lot, yet still experience emptiness. Knowledge has not descended into behavior. And here emerges a crucial point. Identity is not built by what you know, but by what you repeat. If you repeat distraction, you build a scattered identity. If you repeat presence, you build a centered identity. Behavioral psychology shows that habits shape the sense of self. Small daily actions reinforce internal narratives. When you consistently choose to go deep into a single subject for weeks, you strengthen neural circuits associated with persistence and coherence. That is practical consciousness expansion. And perhaps here is the question that no one asks. Do you want to feel spiritually stimulated or spiritually transformed? Stimulation is fast. Transformation is cumulative. Stimulation generates temporary excitement. Transformation generates internal stability. The modern world offers stimulation in abundance. Transformation requires decision. Later, when we discuss timelines as a metaphor for repeated choices, it will become even clearer how this pattern defines your future experience. For now, retain this. Information is not consciousness. Consciousness is applied information aligned with emotional coherence. If this reflection is already reorganizing your perception, leave a comment sharing which concepts you have consumed most in recent months and how many of them you have truly applied. This kind of honesty not only strengthens your clarity, but also builds a collective field of conscious responsibility. Because awakening is not collecting ideas, it is becoming what you claim to understand, and that requires depth. There is a silent transformation happening in how human beings construct identity. For most of history, identity was shaped primarily through direct interaction, real experiences, concrete challenges, and recognition within physical communities. Today, a significant portion of identity formation happens in digital environments that operate through image, validation, and constant comparison. And this deeply alters psychological structure. Social psychology demonstrates that human beings adjust behavior according to context. In digital spaces, the context is performance. Every post is curated. Every image is selected. Every opinion is shaped by the potential for acceptance or rejection. Over time, something subtle occurs. The person begins living to sustain the projected version of themselves. That version is not necessarily false. It is partial, edited, selected. The problem is not showing your best side. The problem arises when internal identity becomes dependent on external validation. Neurologically, social approval activates the same reward circuits involved in pleasurable physical stimuli. Likes, comments, and shares release dopamine. The brain quickly learns. Exposure generates reward. But there is an invisible cost. When your identity depends on external response, emotional stability becomes fragile. Criticism hurts more. Comparison intensifies. Anxiety increases. And anxiety fragments attention. Notice the cycle forming again. Fragmented attention leads to superficiality. Superficiality reinforces validation seeking. Validation reinforces fragmentation. It becomes a closed loop. Digital identity creates multiple versions of you. The self you feel internally. The self you present online. The self you believe you should be. When these are misaligned, psychological tension emerges. In psychology, this is called internal incongruence. Prolonged incongruence increases stress and reduces authenticity. The person begins to feel as if they are performing their own life. Constant performance is exhausting. This phenomenon has entered spirituality as well. Many have built a spiritual persona, sharing light, love, abundance, while internally struggling with unresolved fear and insecurity. This is not judgment. It is awareness. Spirituality is not aesthetic identity. It is internal reorganization. True initiation is not public recognition. It is private coherence. In physics, coherence refers to waves synchronized in frequency and phase, amplifying energy. In psychology and spirituality, coherence symbolizes alignment between thought, emotion, and action. When you think one thing, feel another, and do a third, energy disperses. Dispersion is internal superficiality. Coherence is depth. Perhaps this is why so many feel tired without knowing why. It is not only workload, it is incongruence. You are not a marketing project. You are a consciousness process, and processes require time. Alignment is the opposite of superficiality. Identity is not built by image. It is built by conscious repetition of alignment. There is something delicate that must be said with maturity. Contemporary spirituality, in many contexts, has been transformed into aesthetics. This does not mean it has lost all value. It means it has largely been absorbed by the logic of performance and rapid consumption. Observe the current landscape. Short phrases about high vibration, minimalist images accompanied by words like detachment, prosperity, expansion, techniques promising instant manifestation, rituals simplified into steps that fit into a 1-minute video. None of this is necessarily false, but it is often incomplete. Historically, authentic spiritual paths were not comfortable. Initiatory traditions required confronting one's shadow, recognizing limitations, enduring silence and discipline. It was not a path of external validation, but internal transformation. Today, spirituality is often presented as an identity to display. You begin to appear conscious before reorganizing your mental patterns. When spirituality becomes aesthetic, it shifts from liberation tool to ego reinforcement mechanism. The spiritual ego is more sophisticated than the material ego. It seeks recognition as evolved, awakened, different. But as long as there is a need for superiority, there is still identification with comparison. Comparison is a root of superficiality. Psychologically, this can function as compensation, adopting elevated language to avoid unresolved internal conflicts. Inspiration is not initiation. Inspiration is feeling moved by an elevated idea. Initiation is restructuring your life to sustain that idea. Wisdom is not consumption. It is assimilation. Gratitude, for example, is simple to talk about, but daily practice measurably reduces stress and reshapes perception patterns. Meditation alters brain structure with sustained practice. Spirituality as aesthetics offers quick belonging. Spirituality as initiation offers slow but stable transformation. Transformation often begins with deconstruction, and deconstruction requires courage. True initiation does not begin in temples. It begins with the courage to look inward without filters, and that is the opposite of superficiality. There is something delicate that must be said with maturity. Contemporary spirituality, in many contexts, has been transformed into aesthetics. This does not mean it has lost all value. It means it has largely been absorbed by the logic of performance and rapid consumption. Observe the current landscape. Short phrases about high vibration, minimalist images accompanied by words like detachment, prosperity, expansion, techniques promising instant manifestation, rituals simplified into steps that fit into a 1-minute video. None of this is necessarily false, but it is often incomplete. Historically, authentic spiritual paths were not comfortable. Initiatory traditions required confronting one's shadow, recognizing limitations, enduring silence and discipline. It was not a path of external validation, but internal transformation. Today, spirituality is often presented as an identity to display. You begin to appear conscious before reorganizing your mental patterns. When spirituality becomes aesthetic, it shifts from liberation tool to ego reinforcement mechanism. The spiritual ego is more sophisticated than the material ego. It seeks recognition as evolved, awakened, different. But as long as there is a need for superiority, there is still identification with comparison. Comparison is a root of superficiality. Psychologically, this can function as compensation, adopting elevated language to avoid unresolved internal conflicts. Inspiration is not initiation. Inspiration is feeling moved by an elevated idea. Initiation is restructuring your life to sustain that idea. Wisdom is not consumption, it is assimilation. Gratitude, for example, is simple to talk about, but daily practice measurably reduces stress and reshapes perception patterns. Meditation alters brain structure with sustained practice. Spirituality as aesthetics offers quick belonging. Spirituality as initiation offers slow but stable transformation. Transformation often begins with deconstruction, and deconstruction requires courage. True initiation does not begin in temples. It begins with the courage to look inward without filters, and that is the opposite of superficiality. The idea of timelines has become popular in recent years. In theoretical physics, interpretations like the many worlds hypothesis suggest multiple possible states may coexist at subatomic levels. It is important to be precise. This is a mathematical interpretation of quantum equations, still debated. It is not proof that the human mind jumps between physical universes. However, as a psychological and spiritual metaphor, timelines are powerful. Each repeated choice builds a trajectory, not magically, cumulatively. Repeated reactions strengthen neural pathways. Neural pathways shape emotional patterns. Emotional patterns shape perception. Perception shapes future action. Superficiality reinforces automatic repetition. Depth reinforces conscious choice. Most daily decisions are automatic cognitive shortcuts, efficient for survival, limiting for conscious expansion. Changing timelines means interrupting unconscious repetition. It means choosing differently when old impulses arise. Transformation happens through micro-decisions repeated consistently, and no one sustains deep change alone for long. Environment influences patterns. Community influences emotional frequency. If this dialogue feels necessary, consider becoming a member of the channel, not merely as financial support, but as a vibrational commitment. Strengthening environments of depth reinforces personal transformation. The highest timeline is not the most comfortable. It requires responsibility, consistency, abandoning old justifications. Superficiality oscillates between euphoria and frustration. Depth builds serenity. Each repetition is a vote for the identity you are becoming. So far, we have explored fragmented attention, information overload, digital ego, aesthetic spirituality, absence of silence, and unconscious repetition of patterns. Now we must examine the broader landscape. Superficiality is not merely a side effect of modernity. It is functional within the system. By system, we do not mean conspiracy. We mean economic, technological, and social structures driven by incentives. The modern economy is largely an attention economy. Digital platforms are designed to maximize engagement time. Algorithms are optimized to provoke reaction, not reflection. Outrage generates more clicks than serenity. Polarization spreads faster than nuance. This is documented business logic. The longer you stay engaged, the more data is generated, the more predictable your behavior becomes. Predictability is profitable. Superficiality is efficient because depth questions, depth pauses, depth resists impulsive reaction. Rapid reaction is monetizable. When the nervous system is overstimulated, discernment decreases. Without discernment, everything feels equally urgent. And when everything is urgent, nothing is meaningful. Understanding the mechanism restores power. You cannot control platforms, but you can control your response. If you do not consciously choose where your attention rests, someone else will choose for you, not out of malice, out of interest. Attention is your most valuable resource. It determines what grows in your mind. Superficiality is convenient externally. Depth is revolutionary internally. And every genuine revolution begins within. After everything we have explored, fragmented attention, information overload, digital ego, aesthetic spirituality, absence of silence, unconscious repetition, and the engineering of distraction, an inevitable question arises. How can one live with depth in an environment that favors superficiality? The answer does not lie in extreme isolation, nor in rejecting technology, nor in romanticizing the past. It lies in conscious strategy. Depth is not a personality trait. It is deliberate practice. And deliberate practice requires method. First, reduce unnecessary stimuli. This does not mean abandoning social media or disconnecting from the world. It means establishing clear limits. Determine specific hours for digital consumption. Disable notifications that are not essential. Interrupt the cycle of continuous stimulation. Each notification is a microcognitive interruption. Studies show that after an interruption, the brain may take several minutes to return to its previous level of focus. Multiply that by dozens of notifications per day, and you will understand why depth becomes rare. Second, establish a daily ritual of silence. Not as a spiritual obligation, but as mental hygiene. 5 to 20 minutes of conscious observation of your breath. No mystical expectation, just presence. Over time, you will notice something fundamental. The space between stimulus and response begins to widen, and in that space, choice is born. Third, go deeper into fewer subjects. Modern culture values superficial breadth, but transformation happens through immersion. Choose one subject: self-knowledge, emotional regulation, conscious finance, quantum physics applied to philosophy, and study it consistently for weeks. Repetition creates neural density. Neural density creates internal stability. Fourth, write. Writing is not merely recording, it is cognitive organization. When you write reflections, you consolidate diffuse thoughts. The act of writing activates multiple brain regions simultaneously, favoring integration. Write about your reactions, about your patterns, about your decisions. Writing transforms abstraction into clarity. Fifth, practice microcoherence. Microcoherence means aligning small actions with declared values. If you say you value health, choose one daily behavior that reflects that. If you say you value presence, practice active listening in conversations. Do not try to change everything at once. Change small things repeatedly. Remember what we discussed about timelines. Repetition consolidates trajectory. Depth is built in ordinary daily life, not in extraordinary events. And here is something that may redefine your perception. Superficiality is comfortable in the short term and destructive in the long term. Depth is uncomfortable in the short term and liberating in the long term. At first, reducing stimulation creates restlessness. Silence feels strange. Discipline feels restrictive. But over time, something stabilizes. You begin to perceive less internal noise, less need for validation, less reactivity, and more clarity. Clarity is not euphoria. It is stability, and stability allows more conscious decisions. Now integrate everything. Modern superficiality is not an isolated accident. It is the result of culturally reinforced patterns. But patterns can be interrupted. Attention can be trained. Identity can be reorganized. Silence can be recovered. Spirituality can cease to be aesthetic and become practice. And lines of repetition can be redirected. None of this requires perfection. It requires consistency. It requires honesty. It requires emotional maturity. If you have reached this point, you already demonstrate something rare, a willingness for depth. So consolidate that decision. Choose one simple practice today. Implement it tomorrow. Repeat it for 30 days. Observe what changes. Because true change is not dramatic, it is cumulative. And before we conclude this journey, internally synthesize what has been revealed. Superficiality begins with fragmented attention. Fragmentation is reinforced by overstimulation. Overstimulation prevents silence. Without silence, there is no integration. Without integration, there is no coherence. Without coherence, there is no sustainable transformation. But with conscious attention, deliberate silence, and intentional repetition, a new trajectory forms. And that trajectory does not depend on cultural trends. It depends on you. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, because every person who awakens illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not merely for engagement, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. And remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future. It is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in peace, in clarity, and in love. Until the next awakening.